Well, didn't I say the last time here that the Nigerian political space is one that never lacks spice? Well, dynamic, always in a state of flux, tasty, spicy, or just simply flat. Well, the cooking pot upturned, cooks in mask, a little swapped for guns, chaos, burnt food, party without music, and dance. Lawal Dara's snow-white tunic stained from the porridge, and now he's dancing to a sound only he can hear. Now, who's taken the DSS back to the military era, dogged by Gestapo-styled action? There's a much talked about cabal around the president being chased out of the kitchen. Remember, it keeps brewing and pouring out. Stove on, cooking time. But wait a minute, what's cooking? It's Political Stew. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Welcome. Breathless morning for many in Nigeria and Nigerians across the world when many woke up to stories of a seeming hijack of Nigeria's National Assembly. Now, if there's one word many fear to describe that move by the Lawal Dara-led DSS, it's a coup, an attempt on Nigeria's hard-earned democracy. Now, how did the nation get here? First, the nation's police chief, Idris Abubakar, the president himself, said the IGP disobeyed his order. Then they moved into Benue State to quell the killings there, and nothing happened. In all of this, we still have news of defection, decamping, or carpet crossing sweeping across the country. But if you look closely now, some say it's a swap or an exchange going on. What's cooking? Do you smell what I smell? Something is burning. Well, you can watch us live on the go at tvcnews.tv/live streaming. We're live on YouTube, TVC News Nigeria Live, and on youtube.com/politicalstew. You can catch all our past shows on our website, politicalstewng.com. You can also watch us live on Facebook, and you have all the handles on your screen. We'll take a moment while we'll come back. I have two guests who will be looking at all of these, call them dance without any music, or music without dance only they can actually hear. If these people can actually decipher what these are, then they'll be telling us what exactly it is right here on Political Stew. Well, a whole lot has been happening in the polity, and we did say just sometimes you blink not, else you miss a thing. But for some others, they would describe this as something that is geared towards strengthening our democracy. Whatever that means, we'll just have two lovely, guests in the studio to look at all of this and see how it pans out. But again, don't forget that tomorrow will be Wednesday, where many are looking towards a town, or the town of Ikodekpene, to see if Godswill Akpabio, who's just resigned as the minority leader in the Senate, will be moving over to the APC. But in all of that, and meshed in all of this cooking game, we're being joined by Jiti Ogunye. He's an attorney at law. Joining us again is Anthony Kila, a professor of policy and strategy, and also the director of Center for International Advance and Professional Studies. Gentlemen, good to have you join us in our political kitchen.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Well, looking at what has been playing out, every time you try to see if you can actually put a finger on what exactly is going on, you get to see something else unfold. Let me start with you, Mr. Ogunye. When you woke up and the news broke, what first came to mind? Did you see this coming?
No, I didn't see it coming. But as events unfolded, I got a sense very early that we're again witnessing some hoax, some theatrics, some simulations, and some maneuvers. The National Assembly, for now, and in the foreseeable future has become a theater of conflict as far as political control is concerned as we move towards 2019. And so we're going to see more of such occurrences in the National Assembly. By this evening, it's already clear that the narrative that people woke up with was actually misleading. Some of the partisans, and I'm talking about the senators themselves from the PDP, have come out to say that yes, they were there, but they didn't see the APC members who were there. Whereas what Nigeria woke up with was a narrative that the DSS was blocking or preventing PDP senators from gaining entry into the National Assembly, presumably shielding APC members inside the National Assembly who were up to mischief and who wanted to impeach possibly the Senate president. And so the battle cry, the rallying cry was that Nigerians should move to the National Assembly to safeguard democracy. At the end of the day, like that occurred.
Perhaps we'll be talking about, you know, a wolf cry pretty much later, Mr. Ogunye. But coming back to you, Professor Kila, when you woke up and that news broke, what first came to mind?
Well, in my mind, my first reaction is that clearly the people we call distinguished and honorable are not very distinguished and honorable, after all. It's a kind of reinforcement, because if there is a chamber of ladies and gentlemen, and they have to either fictitiously or really resort to bringing in police, then it's not an association of gentlemen. You know, where the ladies and gentlemen, you are freeborns who would have different position, and you will boldly and articulately stand by your position and you resolve issue. You know, that's what happens in an association of peers, of freeborns. But where you have a chamber in which people have to resort to violence, to stealing of maize, and the police coming in, then you know there is a flaw in the composition of those people, or at least they're not worthy of how they're being addressed. That was my first thing that came to mind. And it was embarrassing, you know, because you do that thing and then you look at the international news and you say, what are they thinking of your country? You know, some of us feel physical pain for this kind of things. That's the first thing.
But again, I also want us to go back to where Mr. Ogunye left off, and he did say, because that was the news, everyone thought that there was going to be a hijack by a certain group of senators, but again, at the end of the day, not one was, you know, seen by the cameras or the journalists who were there. All through that melee, what we saw was, you know, the senators loyal to the, you know, the leadership as well as those of the PDP.
Yes. Which makes it even worse, because that narrative was comforting. You know, it ain't very clear. You see a scene, you want to see the villains and the hero. Very straightforward, but like you say, in this kind of stew, they make it complicated. And they throw in some spice that is not clear. So towards the end of the day, we're still asking what exactly happened. Yeah, and you know, and this is not good for rational minds. It's not good for young people. It's not good for democracy itself. Because obviously one thing has happened. We're in a situation where we cannot even see obvious things. We can't understand what should be clear. You know, there is a clear body, the security forces, House of Assembly, and they should be, we should be able to say this is what happened that day. We cannot say. It's like not being able to say who has majority or minority in the House. It's not good for a sort of mental being. I'm beginning to worry that beyond partisan politics, the evil all this is doing is actually for our being, you know, for our civil being, and what kind of people we're raising as a nation.
Now I'm trying to look at that now. If there was going to be any kind of understanding for the people, I think the Department of the State Services should be able to also know something that perhaps we all don't know. And it's almost it's more than 12 hours since that siege at the National Assembly. Do you think by now we should be having a statement, even especially now that we have a new leadership in acting capacity of the DSS, before start looking at the actions before that time?
They owe Nigerians an explanation. too often government activities are shrouded in secrecy. And they then leave the people, the citizens, to speculate, to guess, and to imagine what could have happened. And then we have multiple narratives in the social media and all that. And rumor mongering is thriving right now in Nigeria. And it's because government is not forthcoming always in telling us what was and what was not. You know, this morning, as we've noted, we woke up and then, you know, security agents were there, they were hooded, and so they painted an airy picture of something, you know, evil occurring, or that at least they were shielding some people and all that, and then it didn't turn out to be so. So it would be good for them to give an explanation, because if the DSS is charged with securing Nigeria internally, from internal threats and all that, and protecting the state and institutions of state and institutions of democratic governance. And that DSS now turns out to be a part of a story that is as bizarre as we have discovered it is now. Then something fundamentally is wrong with us. Before now, we've seen a trend. Oh, the house of the Senate president is under siege. Oh, the maze has been taken. The maze has been recovered at the bridge. Now they're trying to impeach the Senate president. And then legislators went there this morning and started taking selfies and photographs and all that, as if they were on a picnic, right?
Carnival.
So it's bizarre and it's embarrassing. And the integrity of the international community had also been invoked in the process. Some of the partisans were calling on UK, calling on US, as if Nigeria, as if democracy was going to be destroyed today in Nigeria.
That's a very petty thing.
And then at the end of the day, we then discover that, and now the conspiracy theories continue. Let me break it down this way quickly. If, as we woke up this morning, it was true that there was an intelligence, you know, that indeed made the DSS to move, suspecting that something wrong was afoot. Something wrong was going to unfold there, and they needed to offer protection. Because, mind you, and don't forget, the National Assembly is on recess. It's on vacation, meaning that no legislator was expected to be there today, except for the leadership meeting that the Senate president had convened for later in the afternoon. So that morning, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., nobody expected anybody to be there. And so what we've been told this morning, some of the snippets of information getting out, were that, the APC caucus or senator met yesterday night, and so there was some suggestion that they were going to move to the National Assembly to impeach with their numbers. And don't forget, as we've been told now, they still don't have the requisite majority to impeach, right? And so we woke up this morning and then we saw the DSS there, as if there was a plot to lend credence to such move. So the DSS owes Nigerians, and I'm not talking about the sacked henchman, they owe Nigerians a narrative, an explanation. It's not just sufficient for the president or the acting president to wield the big stick and all that. They owe us an explanation. Otherwise, this kind of thing will not stop.
We'll come back to that issue of explanation, and also highlight some of the issues coming in from the quarters of the Nigerian police. Because if you look at some of the clips, footages of what transpired right inside the complex of the National Assembly, away from the chamber, we saw loads of policemen, but now the police has come up with its own statement denying that they were ever there. So perhaps maybe sometimes some of the things that we get to see on television are actually not real. What do you make of, a situation whereby agencies, as the Nigerian police will come up with a statement when you have ordinarily seen not one, not two, not three, many policemen in the footages that went round, but there is a denial as we speak now from ACP Jimoh Moshood. How does that sit with Nigerians? Where do we hold, you know, or what do we hold as the truth?
Well, I think overall, these people, by these people I mean the government, legislators, and agencies, they are not only embarrassing Nigerians, they're also playing with our minds, and it's a very dangerous thing. I keep saying this thing because...
You think this is some sort of mind games?
No, they're not so conscious of mind games. It's just the consequence of their actions. Now, I'm a big believer that the first role of government in any organized setting, whether it's a club, a church, or a state, the first role of delegated power is to provide certainty. Once we come together, the first thing that authorized power should do is certainty. Certainty, then communication. Even before you do roads, the first thing you establish yourself. Now, the problem we have is governance in Nigeria. And it goes beyond this government, but I think this government is worse. There is no sense of accountability to realize that I must explain to the people that when something happens, I mean, you see it elsewhere in the world. When something happens, the mayor, the governor goes out and make a declaration to say, even if it's flawed, even if it's a pillar that's fallen, to say, we are aware of this is what happened, to avoid doubt. This is the number of people involved. These are the forces we're doing, and I will keep you posted. That is the role of government. Unfortunately, we've bought into this hype of the non-talkative leadership. The idea that leaders do not owe people explanation, which is a very dangerous narrative. The side effect of that is what we're seeing today. Because elsewhere, in normal circumstances, I hate the term in advanced countries, elsewhere in normal circumstances, it is a normal thing that whoever is in charge of any kind of station, if it's a kitchen, a police station, up to governorship, the person in charge should explain to the users what is going on. That is why people get angry if there's a delay in the airport and they don't get clear information. Now, mutatis mutandis, this is what we should be having in government as well. When something happens, the head of agency, the head of government, the elected one, should come out and say, this is the situation. It is very, very strange, very sad, and very worrying that up till now, most adults in Nigeria cannot explain to an 11-year-old what happened today. You see, we don't think of our relationship in life that way. That is why we get into trouble a lot of times, and we need to. So I agree with you, somebody owes the country an explanation, more than one. But it might not be sufficient, but I think it's a good thing that the acting president has come out and fired somebody. You know, the next step, that's a necessary part of the sufficient thing, you know, because it's either the DSS have acted unauthorized and it's bad for the leadership, or they've not acted and it's bad for the leadership.
You know, what comes to mind next now is asking the question, because we're trying to run away from, you know, speculations, but again, we still have to come back to it because of what Mr. Ogunye has actually pointed out. In the absence of some kind of explanation from the government or even the DSS or the police, then we must also try as much as possible to speculate, even though that is not ideal at the moment.
Well, we have a
duty do you think it was a failed, you know, attempt at something we still can't put our finger on?
That's far-fetched, and I will tell you why. The Senate and the House of Representatives went on a recess. The speculation, again, I reach for that word, was that they were trying to avert opposition from within the National Assembly following the defection. Yeah. And so they to meet or resume on the 26th or thereabout of October. The executive, meanwhile, had been pressing that because of the issue of the vote to INEC and some other urgent national matters, that they should please resume. Now there's been no communication that they were going to resume. The leadership of the APC in the National Assembly have been going about, you know, making statements saying that they should resume and all that. And so we woke up this morning and we saw hooded agents who were there. The question that first came to my mind was, what were they securing? Because the National Assembly was not supposed to be in session, right? So what are they securing? And so, as we found out later, there are no legislators within the National Assembly who are doing some stuff, right? And eventually they allowed the senators who were shouting, who were insisting that they should be allowed entrance, in. And when they got in, the argument changed. I don't like mentioning their names, but Senator Ben Bruce then said, we are now here at the foyer of the National Assembly. We are waiting. Akpabio should come. The invasion should come quickly. And so, whereas when they were outside, they were telling Nigerians that they should come because some people had invaded and they were going to do something. So the argument was now that, look, we're here. We are waiting for people who are going to come. So the question then is, so will there be a spin that something was being planned really in the National Assembly for today, and that those who came there, quote unquote, as early responders were the ones who thwarted that thing that should have occurred? Or is it that we conspiracy theories, we then have a situation whereby, for inexplicable reason, which may then come out later, the DSS moved assortment of police officers, then moved. On whose authority were they acting?
I think those are some of the questions we'll try and see if we can...
When the presidency, the Armed Force presidency, that is usually bandied that they've authorized something, has now come out to say that, no, we didn't send you.
I'll come back to all of that.
So which
is also going to lead us into the action of the vice president, and also see how we can also link it, because we have to go back in time and also link it to when the president did say the police chief at that time disobeyed his instruction to go to Benue, and now we're getting to see another action of the DSS, and which has culminated in the sack of Lawal Daura. When we come back, we'll look at all of this, which definitely we'll see if we can actually put our hands on this and see if we can tie this to 2019 and how this has shown some kind of bite from the government of the day towards its own, appointees. Political Stew returns after now. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. Looking at what's been playing out in the country, specifically Abuja, the National Assembly, and what has also happened to the former Director General of the Department of State Services. And I still have my guest, gentleman, Jiti Ogunye, who is an attorney at law, and Professor Anthony Kila, looking at what has transpired. Well, now we're looking at the issues, okay, and, plus the sack of Lawal Daura, and see if this has anything to do with, 2019. This is not the first time we've seen appointees of this government, in flagrant disregard of orders or do things on their own, to the extent that the president had come out to say, someone disobeyed me and nothing happened. So where are we placing this sudden, bite, which has just surfaced from the presidency?
Well, I think three things need to be said. This is August 2018. Everything is connected to 2019 from now on. Every step, every wink, everything, mode of breathing is connected to 2019 for politicians. The only things that need to be said is that I have a personal theory when it comes to politicians. My idea is that politicians, and indeed public office holders, to me, they're always guilty until proven innocent. That is where I start from.
Is that a French way?
No, I like it.
You like that?
Inquisitorial. Strict liability.
I just start from that. And moving that, you see that's a lawyer there, you can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moving to liability, you use insurance theory. When you're insured, if something goes wrong, everybody's a suspect. So it is not enough to say what was
insured.
Including the insured. So when something happens, we have to look at all the actors involved in that stage. The DSS that went there, we want to know who sent them, which particular men, what did they sign to collect the ammunitions. Because we had this thing as if this secret thing, as if everything is complicated. If you really want to investigate, it's not so difficult to investigate. If you have training or passion for investigation, it's forensic. You can audit, you can walk your way back. Students of auditing will understand me. You can walk your way back in your investigation. Because you look at individuals that were involved, what did they sign for when they were going out? How did they get their ammunition? Where they returning to? Who was in charge of that unit? Then you ask the old questions that the ancient Romans asked. Anytime there's any human act that you can't understand, you ask qui bono, who benefits from it? And that will help you to trace this thing back. Now, you say rightly, there's been in the past people who disobey orders and nothing happens. I would disobey orders if nothing happens. There are two important C's in governance: certainty and consequence. Anywhere there is no certainty, it is chaos. Anywhere there is no consequence, it is impunity and strange behaviors. You just need those two things. The places we look up to where looters go and buy houses and send their children to school only to come and die in Nigeria. The places that we look up to, those places, the reason why they work is not because God has made better human beings. It's simply because there is certainty and consequence. You would not cross the red light. Not because one policeman is going to chase you in many places, but because a day later in your house, you get a ticket with your number, a camera catches you once or twice, you won't do it again. Now, if your head of state, the chief commander, the number one guy, says to one man, go to a place, he doesn't go, and nothing happens, of course other people will start doing things. Then you have rogue agencies where possible, then you have people colliding, then you have people who have the audacity to change narrative within 24 hours. Because
let me, Professor Kila, let me bring Ogunye back on this, because I recall if you go through, you know, we don't have to travel too far going back. Recall what happened with the former chief of the NIA and how the news went around that someone prevented his arrest, you know, and prosecution, and everything at that point in time was pointing to the leadership of the DSS at that time, and nothing happened. And every time that news pops up on, you know, traditional news media, now we're not talking about the gossips and the fake news, nothing ever comes out of it. What do you make of this? Because once we had a DSS that was giving a semblance of what democracy was about, a DSS that had a face, not hooded people, a DSS that could talk. At a point in time, a lot of people were saying Marilyn at that point in time, Marilyn Oga was doing too much of the talking. But now we have a DSS that never spoke to anyone. Instead, we're getting to see so many things as we saw today. Are we going back, or is this the way for such agency to operate?
No, certainly not. This is not the way for such an agency. In the West, we know, you know, all the intelligence services community, the agencies that make that community, they have their spokespersons. They have, you know, it's all in the spirit of accountability and transparency, you know, and demonstrating responsibility. In a democracy, you know, this is not the way it ought to be. You know that since the appointment of Lawa Daura, who's just been removed now, the DSS has not had a spokesman. So anytime there is a story involving the DSS, and for the sake of balance and accuracy and authentication, media practitioners want to confirm, you know, the story from, there's nobody to speak to, and it's deliberate. And so within that context of impunity, you then have a journalist being detained for 2 years in a democracy. Nigeria didn't even know that there were two.
Yeah.
People were thinking that it was one journalist that was being detained. It was when the outcry was much and the journalists were charged to court that people then realized that, oh, two of them were being detained for 2 years. And then we had the Benue incident. And then we had other incidents like that. So the sufficient data-wise, the sufficient instances that indeed could have led Nigerians to believing that what happened this morning was a continuation of what had been. The only thing that happened is that when this one occurred, either because it is now, you know, it makes good politics as we approach 2019 to then do the right thing, or they just thinking that, oh, this one is totally unacceptable. We saw a swift
reaction.
Indeed, the swiftest reaction I can remember, that this administration has taken in terms of ours.
How does it make you feel as a lawyer, knowing that the vice president is also a professor of law?
No. I don't see any demarcation. Look, this is what I believe. The vice president is an acting president. Constitutionally, he could have acted alone without consulting the president, but I don't think that the decision that was taken today on Daura could have been taken without the president, who is holiday in England, signing off on it. Because it's such a delicate decision, and because of the implications, one of which is what we've seen today, hand over to the next person that is there, and then that next person is a Bayelsan. So it was a grave decision. And I just commend them for taking that decision appropriately. And believe you me, if that decision had not been taken in the nick of time, the possibility was that we'll go then to have another one day and then everything will then cool off. And nothing will happen.
If I can come in.
No, go ahead.
You see, I want to say something. And I say it, really. I know your show is being watched by a lot of political people. And I say to them that the risk of not being consistent in their action, of not providing sentence and consequences, is that it authorizes bad thinkers like me to suspect their action.
Usually good thinkers.
Now, because the legal mind has shown us rightly here that, and I agree, this is the swiftest reaction of this administration. And I am thinking, are they reacting because they're truly noble Democrats or because they have one interest that they're defending very quickly? Because when people are not normally swift, if they're swift, you should suspect them. When people are normally quiet, when they talk, you should suspect them. So I put it on the table and I throw it there to Mr. Vice President, acting president, to say, I, Anthony Kila, I commend you for this action, but I want you to come clear to say that you have no hidden agenda in this thing, that it is what it looks like.
Can the DSS, with its new leadership under Matthew Seifa, help in, bringing some sense of meaning into all of this action, maybe in the next couple of hours, by telling Nigerians what actually went down?
He has to. If it doesn't, he's following the useless line. He's like them. He has to. He has a duty.
Given what I've heard, I can't praise any security people, but Ireland is coming from their training institute. That should tell you something. Sometimes in these security services in Nigeria, if you are smart and you are intelligent, but you're not politically aligned, you are then banished to the institute to train and teach people. By some strange circumstances, he's now the acting.
You're also aware.
So I believe that
you're also aware of that, because I actually did a piece some time ago that some of the good people, especially
you are sent to Siberia.
So sometimes some of the good people, especially within the Nigerian police force, if they don't like your face, you go to the training school.
It's standard practice.
I am going to sponsor a conspiracy of trainers in Nigeria.
Why?
All teachers should get together.
No, but really, why is it so? Because there was a time I worked in a place, a media organization, a government owned, and some individuals were not too liked, and they were sent to the training school.
Why is that?
Why is that?
No, it's because it's a punitive action, really, and it's not meant to augment your intellectualism or to enable you as a resource person to help that institution. Rather, it is to banish you from the center of action.
I just couldn't help it.
It's interesting, but that's what happens.
But this is a serious thing, although it's weird. It is true that happens a lot in a lot of places in Nigeria. But the reason why they do it, they can't really get rid of those guys because they tend to be brilliant, decent, so you can't really tie anything against them. So what do? You keep them in a place. But this is what I recommend for them. They should do a rebellion. Anytime a brilliant person is confined to a training place, they should start affecting the mind of the people who are going to come out of it. You see, the problem we have, years of regimentation, decades of military rule, we're not used to rebellion anymore. We're used to conforming, being loyal, or walking out of it. We need to learn to stay in the system and rebel. And the kind of rebellion, you will understand it. If you are a news editor, or you do big prose, and you're sent to a desk that you don't enjoy, write your prose in a way that shows all your skills. I have seen somebody who has written a piece on a sporting news using poetic verses to show them that this is the real me. We need to learn, and progress needed, democracy needed. We need to encourage eccentricity and rebellion. At the moment, we all tend to conform.
Let me try and bring this back again, and I want Ogunye to, talk more on this. We've seen, we started growing a culture of where, people are sacked, and even when they have questions to answer, we don't bring them to answer such questions. Now I'm talking about prosecution. With what you saw today, and with the reasons given by the presidency talking about security breaches and the likes, do you think it's proper to take this and stretch this by bringing Mr. Daura before a law court to answer to some charges?
Before we get to that, there must be an inquiry. There must be
by the government.
Yes, there must be what happened.
By the agency.
Now, I got information that, at least from the media, that when the DG of the DSS was summoned, he couldn't offer any rational justification for the deployment, meaning that it was not authorized. So the next question is, who authorized you?
Yeah.
What actuated you?
Yeah.
What propelled you to do it?
Yeah.
And that may then lead to more discoveries.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that once that is established, then you then move to the question of what sanction are we going to apply? Do we have prosecution, or what was it? Is it just a negligent act, or a deliberate, willful violation of the law? Because it's really, really very serious. So if, for example, there was really no expectation that we are going to have a breach of security in the National Assembly. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
The DSS is supposed to prevent the breach of security. Yeah. Now they are now being accused of breaching security. Yeah. So if we discover that there was indeed no speculation, no expectation that there was going to be a breach of security, the next question that follows is that, then what are you doing there? With whom are you acting in concert? The president is away, the vice president, acting president, is the one sanctioning you. Yeah. With whom are you acting? Is it the NSA? Yeah. Who? Why do you do that? Right? And it then even makes it possible for one to then imagine, was it that you set up the government for embarrassment, for denigration? At whose BS are you doing that? So it leads to, and the government can learn a lot from that moving forward. In other words, the point I'm making is that, yes, this first step has been taken. It shouldn't be the last step. No. And if we're going to have a prosecution, we must have that prosecution. The point, which is the next point I'm going to make, that Prof. Kila has made, is right. While he was talking about our rebellion streak dying just now, not being there, I was just thinking, Patrick Wilmot wrote a book, The Right to Rebel. Exactly. And we will read it and all that, and absolutely. You know how Patrick Wilmot was shunted out of the academia by Babangida, for teaching what he was not supposed to teach and saying what he was not supposed to say.
Exactly.
But heaven didn't collapse.
No, not at all. Actually,
we outlived that era. And so the more people are ready to engage and then say, no, this cannot go on and all that, and offering intellectual contestation on issues, I think the better for us in this country.
And moving forward, as you said, one thing, the next time they're going to write this kind of good letter of disengagement of somebody like the head of DSS, the letter should say that this person has been set aside, the next person takes role, and the disengaged person should make himself available. So no traveling, no disappearance, no falling sick.
Yes.
And he should report for questioning. And they should have a good clinic. Because now we know that investigated people have a tendency of being sick. So they need to improve medical services. I told them, before they went into power, I wrote to the incoming Attorney General of Nigeria, before he was elected, saying that, I hear you're going to fight corruption in Nigeria. I hear you're going to deal with the system. Please provide medical service, because a lot of people are going to be ill once you start investigating them.
And we'll start saying that. But anyway, I think let's see if we can close on this, gentlemen. Looking at the leadership, the man in acting capacity, because you just pointed out something that many Nigerians never knew, you know, about the DSS under the leadership of Lal Dara. They have no spokesperson. They're just not media friendly. They never said anything about anything they were doing. What should be the first task before this man, Mr. Saifa, even in acting capacity?
The first thing that he has to do, by deeds, by words, by action, there has to be a deliberate step to restore confidence in that agency. Yeah. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. Too often, you know, we blame the president for many things. What occurred today just suggested to us, at the very least, that many of the things that we ascribe to the president, indeed, were things that people around him, will feed him with. Of course, ultimately, he is the commander-in-chief and the president, and the buck stops at his table. Yeah, we know that. And I say that because of some of the things that we've seen. A court will order somebody undergoing trial to be released on bail, and then that person is not released on bail. And the question is posed, is it that Buhari is this vindictive? Yeah. Why will you not allow the man to go? Or were you still thinking about how you are upstaging a coup? You know, and stories will then start surfacing. Oh, he was the one who led the arrest of the president. The president is still angry with him, and that's why he's not allowing. So, whereas it's possible that those who are saying, no, we can't leave them, these are the security reasons, might just be people like the demand that just. So it's important for confidence to be restored in that agency. Not an act like this should be declaimed. Other such acts, if you are arresting journalists and they are, just to legitimize that illegality, an act of impunity, they rush them to a magistrate court for trial. So we're going to see in the next 2 days whether this new leadership is going to release those journalists and apologize to them. And even without they going to court first, see how you can pay them reparations. 2 years are not 2 days.
It's a lot. So
such acts of state that can be immediately remedied should be remedied. And then once this is done, I think that the man who is coming in will have done himself, the agency, and the government a lot of good.
I hope so too, because I also understand that he's a lawyer. Your closing statement on that, what should be his first task?
Well, I think his first, in very concrete terms, he should set up an inquiry. He should say, we provide security. Security has been breached. We're going to fish out who did it. I think it's very, you see, part of what is missing is this idea of somebody taking responsibility. Somebody needs to go out there and say, not on my watch. I would fish out to the police officers. Should the spokesman, when something happens, they should say, not on my watch. We should be having a competition to investigate this kind of thing, because you have the NPF, Nigerian Police Force, should be investigating. The chambers, they have their own internal security system as well.
And not only that, even the Police Service Commission.
The Police Service Commission. So we should have
the employee of the IGP.
Yes, we should have a thorough investigation. And this new guy needs to come out and say, not under me will this kind of thing happen again. And we should have a leader who will back him up and say, never again shall we see things like this, because we're going to put a lot of things in place. But I think I criticize the administration a lot, but I want to commend the Vice President for the swift action. With or without the input of the President, we need more of this kind of swift action. I love election period, because politicians are very proactive when you're towards election. That is maybe being malicious to them.
Well, anyway, I think I look forward to having both of you again to joining me here to look at some other national issues. Well, you know how the news changed, and all of a sudden I placed a call to you because it was just happening with such amount of speed. So, Mr. Jiti Ogunye, many thanks for finding time to joining us on Political Stew.
Thank you for inviting me and providing this delicious stew.
And Professor Anthony Kila, many thanks for joining us again on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right, okay, we'll take a moment. When we'll come back, we'll be looking at my snack for today. And I think it just might be about something that you just love to see. But is it an eyesore? Just stay around. Well, time for my piece of snack here. Education is one of the bedrock of a progressive society. Now, the importance of this aspect of our national lives is acknowledged by all. It is the basis for developing a strong human capital for the growth and development of any nation. So no wonder it is captured in both the exclusive and concurrent list. Sadly, our attitude to our educational institutions and facilities has turned out to be that of lip service. It is now a general phenomenon to find dilapidated school buildings not suitable for human habitation as centers of learning for our children. From the north of the country to the southeast and west, such schools exist. Ironically, most of these schools were established decades ago. It therefore means that all that is required is for government to maintain these schools. It would appear also that these schools only get government attention when citizens talk about them. So we shall therefore dedicate part of my snack to calling on government to do its duty to citizens. Today, I bring to you Auchi Comprehensive High School, which was established in 1980 by Professor Ambrose Ali, the then governor of the old Bendel state comprising present-day Edo and Delta states, as part of the revolutionary free and compulsory education program of the then Unity Party of Nigeria. Now, once renowned for its academic excellence, Auchi Comprehensive High School is now a shadow of its old self, having been abandoned by the state government and now effectively taken over by weeds, as you can see, reptiles in some and other bush animals. You can just go there and do some hunting. Now, a school that has produced renowned personalities in the society in different fields of endeavors, from medicine to law, engineering, accounting, can no longer boast of competent and well-behaved students who now learn in an unconducive and unhealthy environment. So a trip around the school leaves one thinking and wondering if the school still play host to students and teachers alike. But it does. Now, in its present state, the school can no longer accommodate students because of the dilapidated structures. Virtually all the buildings housing the classrooms and the principal quarters have collapsed completely and have been taken over by overgrown grasses and bushes. Now, existing classrooms floors have all caved in, leaving such with earth sand. Ceilings are broken. So doors and windows, surprisingly, are out. Parents and guardians still send their children and wards to that school. Now, we're asking the big question today: what is the government of Edo State doing to the school, as well as all the schools which we've started receiving pictures, and we'll highlight them here on our snack. So today, that's our focus, with a school that has all the low points that is not even befitting to be a dump site. That's my show today. Many thanks for watching. I'll be back again next week. See you then.